Hello friends, today I'm going to tell you about a dramatic trailer based on real events called The Ball of Mad Women. Genevieve, along with thousands of people, accompanies the famous writer Hugo on his last journey. During the ceremony, the girl begins to have a seizure, but she manages to stop herself in time. She was late for dinner. Genevieve lies to her parents that she was at a friend's and only her brother Theophyte smiles, realizing that her sister is not telling the truth. In order to change the subject, the guy starts talking about the upcoming debate. Genevieve asks permission to attend the event with her brother, but her father refuses her, reminding her that a lady should not participate in such an event. Before going to bed, the girl goes into the bathroom, and she has an attack again, during which she talks to someone. But Genevieve pulls herself together again, noticing her grandmother at the door, who is waiting for her granddaughter for another evening ritual. In the morning, Theophyte is going to a debate and sees her sister, in whose carriage her father strictly forbade her to go. But the girl is not going to a meeting, but only asks her brother to take her to the outskirts of the city, where she can safely read a book and smoke in secret from strict parents. A disgruntled guy, although not enthusiastic about this idea and his participation, but he cannot refuse his beloved sister. After buying a fresh bun, Geneva goes into a simple cafe, where, sipping a cigarette, reads poetry, glancing at the guy at the next table. Noticing this, the stranger starts a conversation and lends the girl a book about ghosts and spirits, leaving a note with his name on the first page and made her promise to meet again to return the book. In the evening, reading a book given to her, she shares her acquaintance with her brother, and he puts his head on his sister's lap and listens as she reads. The next day, the family arrives at the neighboring estates where the bride Theophyte lives. This union is very important for the father and he remains extremely unhappy when Geneva offended the young lady. Because of this, a conflict arises in the family. Christmas is approaching, and Geneva and her brother are putting up a Christmas tree. Young people climb into the attic for Christmas decorations. At this moment, the girl has another attack, and she confesses to Theo that she now sees many different spirits, and not one man, as before. Geneva confides in her brother and asks him not to be afraid, because in the book that the guy borrowed from the cafe, it is written that there are many people like her. Geneva returns to her grandmother's bedroom to comb her hair and put her to bed, but at some point the girl gives up all her business and starts sorting through things in the closet, where she finds a pendant that a relative lost 40 years ago. When asked by her grandmother how she found out about it, the girl admits that her late grandfather told her about it. In the morning, the girl is woken up by an excited mother and says that she and her father are going to the neighboring estate again, so the woman asks her daughter to behave decently and not to say too much. Noticing the tears in her mother's eyes, Geneva thinks that it's just concern for her behavior. So, hugging her parent, the girl is going to visit, suspecting nothing. On the way, Geneva notices a valise at her father's feet and realizes that they are clearly not going to visit. Looking out of the window, the girl does not recognize the way, but, noticing the mentally ill in the garden, she understands everything. Unfortunately, it turns out to be too late. The carriage stops at the gate of the psychiatric hospital where her father brought Geneva after her brother told him about her visions of spirits. The medical staff immediately took the girl by the hands, ignoring her screams, and only Theo could not remain calm, bending over Coretta, because he felt sick. After a slight hesitation, the head of the family signed a document in which he indicated his consent to the compulsory treatment of his daughter. Senior nurse Genevieve examines the new girl without much ceremony and immediately notes that any disobedience threatens solitary confinement here. Geneva comes to the ward and immediately falls into shock from where she got. Dozens of women, half of whom behave absolutely inappropriately, try to immediately touch the new patient, but Louise, a girl who has mental problems, comes to the rescue, but it seems that they are already caused by local treatment and the local situation. The patient says something incessantly, telling about her engagement to the young Dr. Jules and that every year they have a costume ball for the rich and officials in their clinic. Over lunch, Louise introduces the new girl to local patients, telling her in detail about each of them. The first night is very difficult for Geneva and she practically does not sleep, and in the morning the girl watches as the head nurse takes Louise somewhere and from their conversation it becomes clear that this is a constant practice. Louise is brought to a large office where dozens of doctors have gathered, among which there is the same Jules, smiling at Louise so that no one would notice. The head doctor of the hospital, Drive Charcot, begins a hypnosis session and, when the girl falls to the floor, calmly steps over her and says goodbye to everyone until the next procedure. The patient is transferred to a medical center, where she wakes up and Dr. Jules comes to her, who escorts the medical staff out and, taking advantage of the girl's naivety, informs her that very soon he will propose to her at a costume ball. After that, the doctor puts one hand under the girl's dress, and with the other hand makes himself pleasant. Choosing a free moment, senior nurse Genevieve runs home to visit her elderly father and have lunch with him, having previously told the latest news from the clinic. Back at work, Nurse Genevieve goes to visit the new girl, and Geneva addresses the nurse on behalf of the Bondi of Genevieve's late sister. The woman does not want to hear and believe what the madwoman says, and orders her to be silent. The doctor examines the patients and prescribes cold water therapy with ice cubes to Geneva, which finally breaks the girl. Theo tracks down Genevieve and asks her to help her sister. Confessing that he regrets what he did, the man asks the nurse to give the girl the book. After a little thought, the employee informs Geneva about the book she was given and about Theo's visit, but agrees to give the book away on condition that the girl contacts the spirit of her deceased sister and helps them talk. One night Genevieve wakes up the patient and brings her to her office, where she plans to witness the ritual. Geneva cannot contact Bondi for a long time, but then the deceased sister gets in touch and informs that the nurse's father became ill at home in the kitchen. Having abandoned everything, the woman runs home and really finds the man in a bad condition. Then he asks his daughter how she found out about what happened. Genevieve decides to confess, but receives only criticism from her father. After another session of hypnotherapy, Louise's legs and one half of her body fail. Seeing this, Geneva can no longer remain silent and expresses everything she thinks about it, without hesitating in expressions and accusations. For this, the girl is recognized as dangerous and transferred to a solitary dark cell, in a department run by the stern Zana. Food is served to the patient through a window at the bottom of the door. The only shutters open only from time to time. It seems that this therapy is aimed only at finally breaking the will of patients. One day, when Jean visits Geneva once again to mock her, the girl tells the matron that she communicates with the nurse's deceased mother and knows all her secrets. The nurse uses force and releases the girl's throat only when she has absolutely nothing to breathe. Genevieve reflects on what happened and, unable to withstand the mystery, tells the girl that she will help her get out of the clinic. She just needs to be patient a little. The nurse convinces Charcot that the patient has finally lost her will and is no longer dangerous, after which the doctor agrees to transfer the girl back to the general department, where everyone is preparing for the upcoming ball. Geneva finds Louise in a wheelchair, but the girl does not lose her presence of mind and still believes in her upcoming marriage and a happy future. At night, Geneva manages to read the note that Genevieve secretly gave during the translation, and Theo also receives the same letter with an invitation to the ball. There comes a ballroom evening. Rich and influential guests come to the clinic who want to have fun with mentally ill patients. Théophile also comes by invitation and almost immediately finds her sister. Having invited her to dance, Jean does not take her eyes off the couple, suspecting them of collusion with Genevieve. The fun begins. Some of the guests openly mock the women. Someone plans to fulfill their animal fantasies by treating the women of the clinic with hot drinks and whispering tender words in their ears. Taking advantage of the situation, Genevieve manages to quietly take Geneva and Theo to her office and, after changing the girl, go with them to the exit. Jules also managed to take advantage of the fun, dragged a wheelchair with Louise into an empty room, telling the girl that the wedding ceremony was about to take place. Realizing that the paralyzed girl would not be able to resist, the doctor knocked her over on the table, achieving what had been in his dreams for so long. One of the patients, who had lived in the clinic for 25 years for taking revenge on her husband for treason, at that moment burst into the office. When everything was in full swing, you know what I mean, it didn't stop the old lady from beating off all the important parts of his body. Jean noticed the disappearance of the patient and her brother and rushed to look for them. Noticing the fugitives in the corridor, the nurse raised a scream, but Genevieve managed to get the couple out of the gate, where a carriage was waiting for them. The nurse herself remained on the hospital grounds, refusing to run away together. A year later, Geneva writes a letter to a friend, telling her that she is free and lives happily away from everyone and no longer hides her abilities, helps those who need it. Genevieve reads about it with a smile, sitting in the park of the clinic, but now she walks through this park not as a nurse, but as a patient. Such was the price for Geneva's freedom. Friends, thank you for watching. Write in the comments what you think about this movie and please do not forget to support us with likes and subscribe.